Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do a really fun VR. Now let's talk about this first. The VR is called Surprising Decks. And originally I've seen this video on Marine's channel, Marine at the Waves of Your Soul. However, she had seen this posted by an Italian tarot tuber, which I didn't know. And I'm very happy that I found her channel. And her channel is actually in Italian. It's called Semplicemente SE, Simply SE. And every now and then she does post some videos in English as well. And I'm just gonna put the link to her video and Marine's video in the description box below. So I really wanted to do this tag. Why? Because ever since I started reading tarot and collecting tarot, so we're talking about a long time ago, it will be about more than 35 years ago by now, there's been over and over and over again decks that have surprised me. I have to say something, it's probably more recently in the last perhaps 15 years rather than at the beginning. And it's simply related to the fact that whilst at the beginning I was really open-minded and I was open to any kind of possibilities and I really didn't know what to expect, and so therefore every time that I was buying a new deck, it was a new deck, you know, and I had my butterflies in my stomach, and it was about you know, the discovery of a new deck and what is this deck going to do for me, what can I do with it, and what kind of conversation we can have. And I was always really excited about anything that I could get my hands on. And that resulted in me having and, you know, keeping then some of the decks that now go for like $1,500 that I had no idea that would have become so precious with time. And I bought that back then. What happens is that, as you know, looking back at my practice, whenever I was getting more decks in, I was starting to realize that I had a collection on my hands, and it wasn't just buying decks because I wanted to read with a different deck. It was buying decks because I liked them, because I like the artwork, because I like the vibes, because I like the energy, I like the feel of it, I like the way they read, I like the way that perhaps they were different, perhaps they had a theme I was passionate about, many different reasons. But when I started realizing that I had a collection on my hands, I started becoming more and more picky. And I'll try and explain that. It's the same way you actually lose your innocence by growing up. And the more experiences you have, at the beginning, you're happy about everything. You're happy about trying any kind of food because it's a new food, it's a new experience. And you know that sometimes it can go wrong. Sometimes you might not like the flavor, but you keep on eating new stuff or buying new things or trying new things because you also know that there are very good chances that you are going to like that food, you are going to like that experience and enjoy whatever it is that you're doing for the first time. But after so many years, what happens is that you develop your own taste. And your own taste, at the end of the day, is something that is starting from a very wide, very ample kind of spectrum, and it's just funneling down to something very specific. Now, I'm very lucky because I'm someone that has been blessed, definitely blessed with the possibility of traveling pretty much anywhere I want to. Granted, I make it the priority number one. Together with my husband, that's what we live for. Basically, we live to travel, we work the whole year, and then we have these 6 to 8 weeks every year in which we just travel, backpacking, and going around the world and having new experiences and meeting new people and exchanging cultural differences and integrating. So thanks to that, I think, it's a theory, I don't know, but bear with me. The more I travel, the more I realize that sometimes going back to what you like, it's okay. So it's not always about choosing something new. It's not always new is something better. It's sometimes new is better, sometimes old is better. There's no percentage. I cannot really assign a percentage to what is new or what is old. I think that we have to be open-minded to everything. I think that we have to try our best to be that originally innocent kind of person that wants to have new experiences, that is open to new experiences, and therefore looks at things with fresh eyes. Even when your eyes are not fresh anymore and you have to use the dreaded reading glasses and you try and buy the least obnoxious ones so that you can pretend that you're not actually wearing them, or you can even pretend that you are wearing them just to look interesting and not because you actually do not see anything without them. You have to try and go back to your original eyes, where you look at things for the first time and you have that open-mindedness that brings you the, you know, like the very first bite you take of a new food. And so I realized this, that I had my bias, is that already plural? Well, I had my bias about some decks. And so for many years, I started avoiding buying some decks. But then recently, I realized that that was just stupid, because it was precluding me with the experience of finding something that I actually liked. And therefore, the video of today is dedicated to just that. Decks that I would not have bought if I didn't have several circumstances that led me to it. And that definitely surprised me, and that gave me that sense of wonder, replicated that sense of wonder that I used to have many years ago when I still didn't have a set kind of taste when looking at new decks. Let's have a look at what I found. Okay, you've probably seen this one by now because I've shown that in a couple of videos, and just full disclaimer, I have no idea when I'm going to post this video. So I'm still traveling, and therefore everything is a bit up in the air for me. My plans have been thrown off a few times. I'm filming it and then I'm uploading it, and I don't know when it's gonna air, but you know, bear with me. It's probably gonna be mid-July, I don't know, but in any case, whenever. So you would have seen this deck because I've talked about it a couple of times. It's probably also in my Tarot Tour Bangkok, no, Tarot Tour Singapore video, because that's what I bought it. This deck, when I saw it, I thought to myself, there you go, there's the bias that comes through, you know, that's what I want to show you. The bias first, the pushing through it of telling myself, no, try anyway, try and have a look, perhaps it will work this time. And you know, the decks that actually it did work. So the bias was like, it's a cutesy dootsy kind of deck. It's an affirmation, it's got wings, it's about everything angelic. It does even say so, Healing Affirmation Oracle for Nature's Angels. It's by Alana Fairchild, and that was a really good thing for me because I do tend to really like her. And I was like, well, it's Blue Angel. And I was like, hang on a second, Blue Angel is Australian. Why haven't I seen it in Australia? You know, there's many reasons why sometimes Blue Angel publishes first overseas and then in Australia. And let me tell you just 10 seconds, you know, about this. Australia, we're cut off from everywhere. If you didn't know this before, dear fellow Aussies, I'm telling you now, whenever you travel, you see it with your own eyes. We are cut off completely. We get decks 6 months after they've been released. It makes it very difficult for any tarot tuber out there, when even Rockpool Publishing, which is actually Australian, and Blue Angel, which is actually Australian, tend to publish overseas first. And I totally get it, because the market overseas is 1,000,000 times bigger than the Australian market, but it is disheartening. End of the rant. It is what it is. I have to make do with that. It's fine, and I'm lucky enough because I travel. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those usual ones, and I didn't particularly feel like a cutesy dootsy deck. Let me tell you how wrong I was. I bought it anyway because I had an inkling that it was been pairing up really well with the Tarot of Disorder and Innocence. And it really does, actually. And I'm pretty sure I've shown this a couple of times, that pairing. Now, when I started reading this booklet, because I always do that, my heart skipped a bit, because there's a couple of things that I did not know. You know, I was going through it quickly at first, and then I always tell myself, when I find something that resonates, I will actually spend more time with it and everything. Alana starts talking about the Himalayas, and I already had to, you know, really focus on it, because my eyes will all be misting up. I love the Himalayas. It's Nepal and little Tibet, so Ladakh. I haven't been to actual Tibet yet. I've been refused a couple of times the entry because of several reasons, but it is there in my lifetime. I will have to go there sooner or later. I told my husband we'll have to go before, okay. So, but Nepal, Kathmandu, you know, it's just Tamil. It's a suburb in Nepal, and it's one of my favorite places on earth. And you know, I saw all these names of the Himalayas and the lakes and everything, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, fair enough. I have to read this booklet. I have to look at these cards, and you know, my heart goes to you, Alana, because oh my God, we are so on the same page when it comes to the mountains. I don't know if you can tell from my voice, I'm getting emotional even right now, because I had no idea. Okay, so when I had a look at it, there was something else that wasn't 100% matching my wishes. Let's call it like that. I absolutely adore the artwork, so this has got nothing to do with that. I thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna trim off. It's too big. So I'm just gonna trim off the affirmation. I'm gonna make it 2 decks. I've explained this before. I haven't actually done that because I cannot, I don't have my trimmer. But then I really got into this deck. And I, you know, thinking about what Alana talks about when she talks about the Himalayas. And I finally find it. I found that bond. I found that connection. I found that link. I found the way in which this deck actually makes my heart sing. And it's totally not my thing, in the sense that I wouldn't even have bought it. I wouldn't have had a look at it. And it happens more and more often lately, because unfortunately, we cannot really have a look at the decks before buying them. So we have to rely on a couple of images that we've seen online. If someone has been lucky enough to have been sent these decks before they've been released, you know, we can have a look at that walkthrough on YouTube or perhaps on Instagram. But it's not easy, and it's not the same thing. And on top of everything, you really have to hold the deck in your own hands to see what your reaction is, because the tactile feel to it is very important as well. So all this to say that this is a wonderful deck. Has been an incredibly wonderful and heartwarming surprise, and I really recommend it. It's so soft and very simple, very linear, in the sense that it does not let's say, it treats you really gently. It's a hug deck, and it's meant to be a hug deck. That's exactly, it's doing what it's supposed to do. So it's something that I really appreciate, and it was a really positive surprise for me. So this is the Wings of Wisdom. Now the second deck, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit, that we're talking about today as a surprise, let's say, is the Silver Era. Pardon my pronunciation of the word era, because in Italian will be era. So I really have to fight my instinct. Anyway, Silver Era Tarot. It's by Russell J. Moon, and the artist is Onya Khan. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Now, the reason why I was originally hesitating in buying this deck, and then I did buy it, and it was a surprise, and it was a positive surprise, is mostly due to the fact that it's published by Shifa. Okay, just a small disclaimer. I have many Shifa decks. I work with them. It's fine. They don't have the best cardstock. I'm not the only one saying that. It seems to be quite common in the tarot community to have this opinion about Shifa decks. I don't think they're going to change anytime soon, whether they listen to us or not. I think there's two things to say about a business, okay? One is cost-effective production. And there's no two ways around that. If for them this formula is cost-effective, then of course they're not going to change it. And it's a business. It's not supposed to. They're supposed to keep being in business, and in order to keep being in business, perhaps they have to produce tax this way. I've been in business for many, many years, and I know what that means. Of course, you listen to your customers, but you have to put everything on a balance. That's the one thing. On the other hand, let's say, if they want to listen to the tarot community, then they will. One day, they probably will change it. They change the cardstock, and they'll go with a different kind of, not as glossy, let's say, cardstock. You can probably tell if I do this. No, yeah, there you go. You can see, hello, the light. Having said that, whenever I see a shifter deck, the reason why, let's say, it was a surprise for me is because whenever I see a shifter deck, I think twice before buying it, because I know about the issues, my personal issues, which are not but always, sometimes they are shared with the tarot community, with the cardstock. Having said that, when I looked at it, I had a bit of a look online. I had a bit of a read about the concept behind it. So it says that it's, I think it's on the, it's on the back of the box. It says it's a contemporary approach brings life to a classic subject in this stylish, functional tarot card deck. Black and white images of grace and beauty highlighted with a single color accent on each card draws the reader into a world of charm and antiquity rarely seen and experienced in tarot today. I have to say, I know that that's a marketing gimmick, is a way to entice you, to convince you to buy something, which is absolutely, again, totally fine, because that's what we all do. Sorry, I keep on moving the desk, so I should stop doing that with my hands. But I really love the idea of the black and white with one splash of color. And so I thought to myself, listen, just buy it and let's have a look at what it is. And then if you like it, if you bond with it, you keep it. Otherwise, you can always pass it to someone else who will bond with it. And you know what? I think it's fairly safe in my collection because it actually is very beautiful. I absolutely adore the way in which the choice of the shading in the artwork. There's a lot of work done in all of these shading. It's a very special technique. It's okay. Let me say something. Let's say if you at school have done any kind of artistic work with charcoal, you know, the charcoal pen, this would be very familiar to you because it gives you a similar kind of vibe. However, because there is indeed one color, there is not black and white, so there is a choice of which element in the cards will they keep the color on, and that makes it so interesting because it really draws your attention to the color. So think about it. There was a movie many years ago, but it's a very famous one, so I'm hoping you'll all seen it. If you haven't, do yourself a favor, just watch it. It's called Schindler's List. It was a fantastic movie. I think it was produced and directed by Spielberg. I could be wrong. In any case, it's a black and white movie, and it's about, unfortunately, it's about the Holocaust. And or rather, you know, what happened during the Second World War. It's a black and white. However, there is one scene and one scene only in which the main protagonist, who's a Nazi, okay, he looks, I think he looks at the outside the window, I think it is. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but the scene is from above. So you've seen this multitude of people and they're trying to escape, they're trying to run away. And everything is black and white but one thing, and it's a coat. It's a little girl, and she has a red coat. Okay, and what happens is that you notice that because out of all the black and white, you think, why is the coat of this little girl still in color? What was the choice behind that? What is the author, the director, etc. trying to tell us with that? And unfortunately, you'll find out, because after a while in the movie, you see that there's a very sad scene in which they are taking away the corpses of the people who have been killed. And he, again, the same protagonist, it looks again at the scene unfurling in front of him, and unfortunately there is the little, you see it immediately, the spot of red of the coat of the little girl taken away, because she is lifeless, and unfortunately she's dead. Now and then you understand immediately why your attention was brought to that spot of red, because it would imagine the scene would not have been as charged, it would not have had the same effect, obviously, in the movie. So that was a fantastic way. I applaud, I think it was Spielberg, I applaud him for choosing that as a medium for us to understand the pain behind that scene. The fact that indeed there is one alive little girl that has this really bright red coat, and she's moving about, and you really notice it because everything else is black and white. And unfortunately, after that, you do see the red against the black and white again, but it's because she's dead. And not that you see death in this deck, but I think that it's more or less exactly the same kind of procedure, let's say, that it's done in exactly the same way. So whenever it's all black and white, but whenever you see the splash of color, it draws your attention to that thing, to that element, to that symbol, and it does it in a really, really good way. So this is a deck that definitely surprised me because of that, and it's the Silver Era Tarot. And now we're going to talk about the Seams, or SEAMS tarot. So basically, Seams is the Southeast Asia Myths and Stories tarot by various artists from Southeast Asia, you guessed it. A tarot deck featuring the colorful cultural tapestry of Southeast Asia's various myths and stories. Now, if you probably know already about this deck. If you don't, this is a cooperation of different artists. And it's a lot, because it's not just that, it's actually also the combination of different myths and legends, and they are depicted in a different way. And on top of everything, there's 3 oracle decks included in this, when they come in this deck. This is the edition from 2022, is it? Yes. I am incredibly happy that I convinced myself to get this deck, because let me tell you, generally speaking, I am not someone that to purchase a corporation deck. So there's a lot of decks that are called the 78 tarot. All of those 78 tarot, nautical, magical, animal, mythological, whatever you. I generally do not. I don't purchase them, because I find that for my mindset, it's totally personal, and it's the way in which a person's mind works. It's the way in which we are wired. So taste come definitely from the way in which a person's brain is wired. So my neurons basically have an adverse reaction to different kind of artwork in the same deck. If I do not see cohesiveness, to me, that is not conducive of a good kind of work. So generally speaking, that's the reason why I tend to avoid. I look at them all of the time. They are absolutely fantastic. Some cards are amazing, but because they are not cohesive to me, they don't look cohesive to me, then in that case I don't buy them. I was not going to buy this deck, and then I convinced myself to at least give it a try, because it was a limited edition, because it was an excellent price, and because of several other reasons. I actually adore Southeast Asia. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I know that I keep on saying that every single place in the world. If you don't know me yet, hi, I'm Silvia. I am a travelaholic. I don't even know if that's a word or not, but I need to travel. I travel all the time. Well, not all the time, not as much as I would want to, but we do travel a lot. My husband and I, we actually met traveling, and let me tell you, if he wasn't a traveler, we would not have clicked. You know, you have to be a traveler to be in my a very close circle of friends, and you'll be a brother and a sister to me, even if I don't know you. But if you're a traveler, you're a brother or a sister to me. Having said that, when I saw this one, I thought, okay, it's got the Southeast Asia thing going on for it, which I really adore. It's got myths and legends, and I am a sucker for myths and legends. If you watch my video about all of the myths and legends of the yokai Yoshitaro, you will know I adore the supernatural, thanks to my dad, because he was so much into the occult, and my auntie, she also was, and obviously I've been growing up around that, so that was very important to me. There were a few things that I really adore. I also studied for many years Buddhism. I never became a Buddhist because I just never really completed my studies, and I just didn't want to fool myself. I owe it to, you know, I owe this kind of respect to the Buddhist religion to know completely how to relate to it and not just be half-baked. And so I could never really get to that last stage. But I know a lot about Buddhism and the art in which it's expressed, and I absolutely love it. I love the different ways in which Buddhism has evolved in different countries in Southeast Asia, and I love the integration of many of these cultures and the symbols, you know, and it's just, this deck was a surprise because of that. As you can tell, it's not the same artwork. They are very different, you know, cards, one from the other, but somehow the cohesiveness is just that. It's a cultural cohesiveness. Even the kind of artwork, or you see the, let's say, the manipulation, the brush stroke and everything are different. I don't mind. I find it absolutely okay. I love it. It's beautiful. It's amazing. As a matter of fact, to me, it feels almost as if I had 78 different decks, even though it's just one with 78 different cards. I even really like the association between what's in the cards and the interpretation of the artist. I love the fact that each and every card tells you who was the person, you know, the artist that worked on the card, and it's amazing. And it tells you the country as well, which is fantastic, because every time that I look at the card, I'm like, okay, this person is from Brunei. I haven't been to Brunei yet. So for me, it's like, okay, on the list. I just adore it. It's just fantastic. It's something that it's almost having a travel guide on Southeast Asia that goes through the myths and legends that you can find in these countries, and they have been thought of in order to create this deck, and I really adore it. You know, I'm so happy that I made the decision of buying this deck, and it was a very fortunate decision. It was a very good surprise, and on top of everything, to put the cherry on top, we've got these three oracles, Balgowlah Oracle cards by Rowan Ong, and they're being illustrated by the same author, so Leonard Jim Narciso. I apologize if I mispronounced any of these names. So these ones are cohesive because they have been illustrated by the same artist, and these are trigrams, so there's symbology that I actually am familiar with, so it's something that I really enjoy. I absolutely love this art style. It's a kind of distressed looking kind of you know, filter that has been applied to the artwork, in this case, in the cards. I'm familiar with the elements and the symbols, as I said before, and it's absolutely beautiful. And on top of everything, there are enough cards in these three oracles that you can actually do a pairing with a tarot deck. So it's something that works really well. Let me see if it fits on the frame. I think it does. Okay, I've already shown this pairing before, so I'm not gonna do too many cards, but as you can see, it totally works. It's amazing. Again, it might not be the same artwork, it might not even share the same color palette, but it just does. It works. It's the energy that works. Why? Because it's cohesive in the sense that it finds a common ground, and that's the one thing that is very, very important. Finding a common ground. If the common ground is related to symbology or culture or myths, mythology, or you know, any kind of thing that may establish a conversation, then it's an actually good choice, and why not? So I highly recommend this deck. I think it's actually out of print now, but I do know that they every now and then they republish. So I'm just gonna post in the description box below, I'm just gonna post a link to Etsy, the Etsy shop, because I think that's where they actually sell it. I found it on a bookstore, so I was very lucky. Because yeah, I do believe that this is definitely not the first edition, obviously, so you might be able to find a third or fourth or fifth edition whenever they are going to publish some more. So this deck really surprised me in a good way, and it's the Seams Tarot. And the next deck that really surprised me, and I have to say this is a double surprise, in the sense that not only the artwork surprised me, but actually the intensity of the way in which the artwork is rendering the concept of the Lenormand Oracle or system of divination. This is called the Maléfique Lenormand. This is the author, which I can't pronounce, sorry about that, but it's the same author as the Tarot Nuage. If you know the deck, you'll recognize the art style. It's a very edgy kind of art style. Now, the reason why this surprised me is that when it comes to Lenormand, I think that it's only very recently, say probably 3-4 years, not longer than that, that we had a lot of artists expressing, you know, a different kind of concept in the artwork from the past, because everyone says, when it comes to Lenormand, everyone says a tree is a tree is a tree, which is correct. Yes, a tree is a tree is a tree, but on the other hand, there are different ways to represent the tree. It's just that I feel that lately, because there is this booming about tarot and oracle decks, people are looking into more, let's say, different kind of system of divination or introspection. And the Lenormand has been kind of, you know, set aside for a while, kind of ignored, not really taken care of until a couple of years ago. Now, this deck, and that's what happens. So the tarot community, generally speaking, when you had a couple of Lenormand decks, you were happy with that because, you know, you didn't look for the artwork in a Lenormand deck. Now you do, because there's this one, which is very interesting, very beautiful, very edgy. There's the Shadowland Lenormand by Monica Budirsky, which I really want to buy, but I don't have any room left in my suitcase, so I'm trying to convince my husband to make some room in his suitcase to see if we can just make do. But this was a really pleasant surprise because it's an incredibly beautiful deck, as you can tell. Of course, the cards are, you know, a letter is a letter. Yes, of course it is. And you will not read it in a different way only because it's got a different kind of artwork. But look at this ring. How beautiful is this? With the, you know, the concept of the yin and the yang inside the ring. So it's these kind of subtle differences in the artwork that probably will, and I'm just saying something here that could turn out to be completely wrong, I don't know, but it may bring a new way to read the Lenormand system. So what if, for example, when we see the stars, we see these colors and we add a kind of a different shade to the meaning, the standard meaning of the stars in the Lenormand. You know what I mean? It's, I don't know, or the crossroads, the fact that it's unique in the sense that it's like a block of earth floating on space. So it really gives you that idea of aloneness as well. Yes, it's a decision, but it's also you're really on your own. So I don't know, I'm just, again, I might be completely wrong. Perhaps this is something that will stop there and will not progress or evolve in any other way. But I do believe that because there is a different kind of approach to Lenormand and the way in which the artists are representing the cards, there might be also a kind of different approach from us readers towards the cards themselves. I love this scythe. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. You know why I love it? It's completely random, but it reminds me of a gondola, the back part of a gondola. You know what I mean? Anyway, that was just me because I missed Venice so much. So this is the Malefic Lenormand, and it really, really surprised me. And another deck that really surprised me, and this time it's purely because of the artwork. I just absolutely adore this deck. The reason why I had a bias against it is because it's called the Gatsby Love and Wisdom Oracle. Whenever I see the word love in an oracle, I think that it's very limited. It's going to be only for relationship-centered readings, which is very stupid, I know, but it's just something that pushes me away every now and then, because I have so many decks that I use for relationship readings for clients that I think I'm set. You know, I got enough on that department. However, I got it because, well, first of all, the production value is just amazing. I mean, the box, it's a wraparound magnetic box, and it's really beautiful linen kind of finish with this gold stamping also on linen. And I really like this kind of art style. I like the 20s, the 1920s kind of clothing and fashion, and also the nonchalance of the 1920s, because I don't know if you studied your history or if you remember anything about them, but they came from a First World War, which was devastating, okay? I'm European. Granted, my parents were obviously not alive during the First World War. My grandparents were, but I could never speak to them, because I only saw my grandfather when he was still alive, and he did not want to talk about it. Let's put it this way, he wanted to talk more about the Second World War rather than the First World War, I think. He was a partisan in the Second World War. He's a hero. He's a decorated hero, and he lost. One day I will talk about him. He was a hero. He saved many lives, and thanks to he risked his life many times, but he saved many families. And one day I'll talk about it. This is the 20s, it's not the 40s, but what I wanted to say is that I had this bias against it, but on the other hand, I was really attracted by this first kind of image that you see on the box, and I thought to myself, let's get it, let's see what it does to you, if you can relate to it, if you like it, etc. You always got the certificate of authenticity. This is from 2022. And the booklet is really interesting. It's also you know, you got full color. You don't really have a lot of the explanation on the card. You do have the same kind of keyword and a sentence, which you can find at the bottom of the card. You do have a little bit more. You've got more keywords. So to oneness, you associate uniqueness, one of a kind, stand firmly, and then you've got a meaning, you are original, etc. You got an archetype, which is kind of interesting, and then you got an affirmation or a journal prompt, which is very interesting. So I really like what I see so far. It talks about the author at the end. There's an index, an introduction, how to use this deck. I wanted to see daily inspirations, so it's not exactly a like a spread, but it does tell you on a couple of ways how to use this deck. Journaling from hearing, and there is also, yes, there is one spread. Have fun exploring. Special spreads. Okay, well, it doesn't give you the schematics, but it does tell you the interpretation of the position, which is always interesting. And then it talks about the cards. But let's have a look at the deck. So this deck was a surprise, and it was a positive one because it's just amazing. So it's called the Gatsby, obviously. So you need to be familiar with this kind of culture. If you are not, there's a few ways to approach it. You can read the book, The Great Gatsby. You can watch some of the movies that were, famous. Those were the years in which, the movies became more and more widely approachable by people because the productions became a little bit more cost effective. We're still incredibly expensive, and we're still talking about mute films. But you did have those stars that, because the movies did not have audio, they had to express everything with their facial expressions or their gestures, and so everything was amplified, everything was exaggerated, even the makeup, the clothes, everything, but it still retained a sort of gracefulness to it. And that to me is the essence of the 20s and what the Gatsby represents. Those excessive parties in which, yes, there was excessive drinking and dancing and laughing and everything, but at the end of the day, it was still contained in the sense that it wasn't going out of the limits of what is supposed to be something for us, for the soul, for the mind, for relaxation, for enjoyment. And so there was this kind of contrast between what an excessive party represented back in the 20s and what an excessive party is represented now in the 2020s. So 100 years later, what is the meaning of maybe drinking too much or flirting, having this kind of conversation and approach to society? What did it mean to be presented, introduced into society and be sought after, for example, and be someone famous, being a celebrity? What were the important things? What was people looking for 100 years ago? And you can also watch the movie The Great Gatsby with Leonardo DiCaprio, which is, I think it was not his best probably, but it was still well made and definitely worth a look because of what it represented. So that kind of culture, and it was really, really beautiful from that point of view. And this deck, this Oracle deck, was immediately a surprise for me because I immediately loved it. I loved the artwork. I honestly don't think that the word love has got much to do with the cards. Even when you look at the keywords or the sentences, it's not a love oracle. This is what I wanted to say. So my bias against it was, oh, it's another love oracle. When I actually had the opportunity to have a look at it, I actually found out that no, not necessarily. It's not necessarily a love oracle, or what I would call a love oracle. And I highly recommend it because it is really, really beautiful. So this is the Gatsby. So let's talk about this deck because I bought it. I bought it because I miss my cats. Because, as I've said many times, I'm traveling, so obviously I cannot see my cats, and they're old, they're seniors, they had their problems in the last couple of years. So I'm an anxious cat mom. Okay, that's my thing. So I bought it, but I don't know why. I thought it was a playing cards deck, which it actually is, but it's not just that. It's actually also an oracle, and that was a really, really beautiful surprise. It's by Stasia Barrington. It's the Curious Cat Club. Now, Stasia Barrington, if you're not familiar with the name, I think you are, though, because she's quite famous. She's the author of the Sasurai Ibito deck, or tarot deck, but she's also the author of the Empty Cap Oracle. Now, you will probably recognize her artwork, her style in this deck. And as you can tell, yes, indeed, it is, you know, it's a playing card deck, but it is also, it can also be used and seen as an oracle. So what they've done, which is very helpful, thank you for that, they give you this folded kind of leaflet, and you have a look, and it gives you a meaning, an oracle meaning for each and every card. So for example, we've got the Ace of Heart in here, the keyword is nap, and you know, it refers to recharge and stillness. Or the Two of Cups is a hug, comfort and intimacy. The Three is flowers, those you hold close, and so on and so forth. So you got the 4 suits, and for each and every card you got at least 3 or 4 keywords, which makes it very easy to use and to interpret. I love the fact that at the back you've got a kitty cat who's reading the cards here. Now this is still in order because I haven't actually started using this yet. Oh my goodness, these are the backs. I mean, look at that. And I'm just gonna go gushing, you know, for each and every card. This is so stinking cute. It's unbelievable. Oh my god. Sorry, I'll try and contain myself. But this is really, really beautiful. I'm really happy about having finally decided to pull the trigger and buy it. It's very affordable. I think it was about $17 Australian. So it's but it's beautiful. I also already have a deck I can pair it with, which is going to be a surprise, because at the end of July, I think, if I have Wi-Fi connection, because that is quite important to post the video, a good Wi-Fi connection. If I do, I will post a really big tarot and oracle haul video, because I have bought, I should probably not say it, but it's about 25 decks in the month of July alone. So okay, I probably exaggerated this time, but it's because, you know, when you go overseas they're cheaper, it's easier, they're easier to find and everything. But I'm very happy that this is one of them, because it's so cute. It's I really love all of these cards. There's obviously, this is the Joker, and he just went poo-poo. I'm sorry, but it's just so funny. This is so funny. So this deck is a surprise, because I totally thought that it was just one of those you know, plain cards deck, but it's actually also an oracle, and I can't wait to start using it as an oracle, even though I will have to familiarize myself with the meaning of the cards, but it's absolutely fine because I like studying. So this is the Curious Cat Club. But let's talk about this behemoth of a deck. So it's called The Doors of Somlipith, a new dimension of card reading by Anna Cortez, illustrated by CJ Freeman. It's a big box, as you can tell. Now, I was very hesitant to get this because, well, first of all, the size and the weight, as we've talked about many times already, but also because it's a completely new system, and sometimes I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing whenever I am you know, dipping my toe into a new system. But then I had a look at the card. I had a possibility to watch, I think it was a video on YouTube, and I had a look at the cards, and the cards are absolutely gorgeous. If slightly difficult to get free from the box. Sorry about that, I have to be a bit blunt about that. So this deck is incredible. Let me tell you, I am really happy again. One of those very happy epiphanies. Let's see, it's, you know, for such a big box, you would think that the actual deck would be bigger. Look at the dimensions. But it doesn't matter. There's a very chunky book, which I'm very happy about, because obviously being a new system and all, you kind of need to have all the elements at your disposal to be able to actually read it. It is a completely new system, okay? There's a bit of everything here. There's symbols that vary from every single kind of divination, you know, discipline or a tradition you can think of. and there's a lot of explanation about the cards as well, which is excellent. There's a bit of everything. It explains to you how you can approach it, how to read it. There's references to astrology, geomancy, you know, the symbology of the time related to the cards as well. There's really a bit of everything. I absolutely love also these drawings in the guidebook about the cards. And there's so many spreads that, you know, and different ways of reading the spreads, that this is gonna take a long time for me to understand how to use it. Let me see if I can zoom in. Okay. So let's have a look at the deck itself. It looks like it's a bridge size deck. It's a really beautiful one. It's got some gold. Let me see if I can show you. Yep, over there you can see some gold stamping. It does follow the plain, like a plain card decks kind of system. However, you have a keyword at the bottom of each and every card. The artwork is amazing. I absolutely love it. It reminds me, sometimes it reminds me of you know, some paintings from the 1800s. The 1800s. It's really beautiful. There's a lot to do, as we said before. There's a lot that you can find when it comes to symbology, but also when it comes to archetypes. This is really, really interesting. And I think that you can actually kind of choose the kind of approach that you want to use with this deck, in the sense that you can start with the symbols, you can start with the, sorry about the noises in the background, by the way. I'm filming from my hotel room, and obviously and it's independent from me. There's nothing I can do about it. So you can choose to approach it from any kind of symbology or system that you want to. For me, it would be interesting to see what it tells me about the archetypes that I see in the cards. Now, this was a bit of a bias for me at the beginning because, well, some of the cards are very strong. I had actually seen this card and I was kind of shocked by it, so I was pushed away because of that. But then I was looking at walkthroughs, and I was looking again at the artwork. I was looking at the archetype and everything, even before I had a possibility to have a look at the guidebook. And I felt like I really wanted to check it out. I really wanted to get to know this deck, because there's so many things that are very strong and powerful, and the messages coming through, even just from the artwork itself, that I thought this is a very strong deck. This is going to be an incredibly powerful deck, as you can see from this card, for example. And I am very happy that I bought it. So another really beautiful surprise, because it's a unique deck. I don't think a lot of people have it. I highly recommend it, because ever since I started digging into it, I like it more and more, and it opens up so many doors, so many rabbit holes you can you know, fall down into. And it's something that I really appreciate, because it takes a lot of research to come out with something like this. So this was another pleasant surprise, and it's the Doors of Somlipith. And last but not least, and I have to zoom all the way out because it's a big box, it's the Mantra Oracle. This is completely new. I don't think it's been released in many countries yet. It's by Lily Barbary Cullen, an essential deck for self-discovery. It's published by Sterling Ethos, and I have to confess that I'm not entirely familiar with this production company. That normally would have represented a bit of a no-no for me, because I never know what the quality is going to be like. You know, especially if it's a tarot deck, you never know whether there's going to be pips, lazy pips in the minors. This is an oracle, so I didn't have that problem. But you always have a kind of a, you know, suspicious at the beginning, because you don't know what you're going to get. But again, this was absolutely affordable. And I had a look at a couple of images on Google Images, and what I saw I really liked, because there's a lot of mantras. So obviously, because it's called the Mantras Oracle, obviously. Now, this deck is a deck that really resonated with me the first time that I had a proper look at it. I'm not in love with the box, but that's completely fine. It's just me. Let's see, let me zoom back in to show you the cards better. There you go. So as you can imagine, there's a mantra for each and every card. Now, whether you use mantra for meditation or for relaxation, for yoga, for rhythm, for example, for any kind of technique, also for regression techniques, sometimes there's a number of things you can use mantras for. Prayer, sorry, that would have been the first that I should have talked about. So if you use mantras or not, regardless of that, this deck is absolutely beautiful. And the reason is also because of the artwork, but it's also because you have a little bit of a sentence and a keyword. Not just, you know, the actual mantra. So you've got this figure, which is absolutely beautiful. Then like prayer, generally speaking, this is the mantra, and then you have the significance of or the meaning of the mantra. So you've got Loka Samasta, harmony for all, etc. It's very beautiful. I really like it. It takes you to a different dimension. It's something that you can use by itself. On Mani Padme Hum, for example, it's called the mantra of compassion. If you do yoga, you will know there is so much more than compassion to that. But I really love what they've chosen as an image to represent this mantra in particular. Om Namah Shivaya, the purifying power of fire. Sorry, Om Namah Shivaya is one of my favorite songs by Krishna Das. There was a time in which I was backpacking through India, and I kept on listening to Krishna Das songs over and over again, and there is such a powerful vibe to all of them. And you know, I actually learned many of them by heart, and I was singing along, and it's a way of praying. Even though I'm not a religious person, but repeating mantras is a way of detaching from your body self and ascending into the as above with your spirit. And so I really appreciate it. And there's a lot of mantras that you can memorize, because they're not difficult. Obviously, if you don't speak Sanskrit, you will not understand the meaning of the words unless you read the translation, which is absolutely fine. But what I mean with that is that it's actually helping you by not understanding what exactly you are saying. It's helping you to detach from the mind, because in many cases you will see that we are so attached to our minds that it becomes more and more difficult for us to actually relax. And this is what this deck is helping you to do. And that's one of the reasons why for me it was a very pleasant surprise. It surprised me because it's not just one of those decks that you would use you know, for your own personal practice, for meditation purposes, for journaling or something like that. It's actually a deck that you can look at. You can look at one of the cards and, you know, just repeat the mantra that is on the card and just stay with it, and stay with it for as long as you want, or rather as long as you need to. You know, I am beyond my identity, beyond my identity. What are we we always stop and think of what we are, and try and find our own identity, because it's so difficult to stick to it sometimes, or to stick to something that someone else wants us to be, or the way we're supposed to be, because that's how society wants us to see ourselves. But what if we go beyond that for maybe only 5 minutes every day, and just achieve something that we never thought we would have been able to achieve? And that's something that you can definitely do with this deck. And I have the feeling that this deck will pair really, really well with the Mind's Eye Tarot, which it's on its way to me, hopefully, when I get back home. So this was a very pleasant surprise, because I thought it would have been just one of those decks for affirmation or relaxation or meditation, but this is actually much more than that. It is a much more powerful and deeper than that deck. So I'm really, really surprised, and I'm very happy that I got it. So this is the Mantra Oracle. And that was it for today. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It means the world to me, and it's really, really fueling this wonderful positive vibes and energy that I get every time that I do a video, that I interact with you in the comments below. It makes me really happy. So have a great day.